Since 2003, this is The Sports Source with your host, John Pennington.
The Sports Source is presented by Junk Be Gone, Pipe Wrench, and the Garza Law Firm.
The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning and welcome into the Sports Source here in the Junk Be Gone studios. We have a full house for you and a full show as well. We got to talk about Tennessee coming up short at Vanderbilt yesterday. They made a heck of a run to make it close and then fell just shy at the end with a missed free throw. We'll discuss that game. We'll also talk UT football, where the Vols suffer an ACL injury to their number one corner. We'll get into that. They're keeping their defensive coordinator, it appears. We'll look into that. We'll also talk about, well, you can't go a week without one or two huge stories in terms of the NCAA and what college sports is becoming. We'll get you up to date on those two big stories and the permutations that go off on those. It's Bruce Pearl week, so we'll look ahead to Tennessee at Auburn. And then one late addition to the show, Hendon Hooker last night for the Detroit Lions. They went to their backup quarterback and they chose to go to a guy who had been coaching high school football just a few weeks ago instead of Hendon Hooker. What does that mean for all the people who say Josh Heupel's system doesn't prepare quarterbacks and wide receivers for the league? Maybe Joe Milton is the answer. Let's get into this show. First segment brought to you by our friends at Junk Be Gone. You've still got 2 more weeks to take advantage of Junk Be Gone's January special. Book a driveway dumpster and get an extra 2 days to fill it. Absolutely free. I use these folks every single year. You should too. Mike Such and his family do a great job. Junk Be Gone, they're terrific for your business. I always talk about them if you want to have them to your home and clear out your house. Not your whole house, but all the junk in your house. Well, boy, if you've got a business, these guys can really help you get rid of old office furniture, old desks, whatever, you name it. junkbegone.biz. All right, let's welcome in the first group today. We have right over here Jimmy Himes back with us. Will West right here. Former D1 basketball player, former UT assistant coach Mark Pankratz right here. Mark, always appreciate your expertise in basketball season. And right there, Chuck Cavaleris, just appreciate your expertise, period.
Thank you, John.
And no one tells me about his expertise as much as Chuck Cavaleris. All right. The Vols fall yesterday 76-75 at Vanderbilt. They need a furious rally to cut the thing to 1, but too many mistakes and not enough defense cost them in the end. Mark, I'll just let you start. And next segment, we'll get into that last sequence from the final 2 minutes. But right now, I just want to talk about the big takeaways, big picture, thoughts on that game yesterday.
Really, we kind of are what we are, aren't we? I mean, you look at it, we shoot about 50% from 3. We take care of the basketball. We do a lot of good things. I give Vanderbilt a lot of credit. They made big shots. They played really well. But we're not that elite separator. We're not one of the top 2 elite teams in the SEC. We got exposed inside again. Vanderbilt did a good job of getting some switches, and we get exposed. They put the ball inside, and we have a tough time guarding the inside. Look what happened against Florida. The points in the paint, the second chance points, all those toughness things inside, we got exposed again. Obviously, was Zakai in the game? If not in foul trouble, that's different. But I just look at this basketball team as we're really good. But if Meshak's got to continue to play, if teams can get into their bench, again, they outscored us on the bench compared to us, we're going to struggle to win on the road in a tough SEC.
Gentlemen, takeaways?
I thought it kind of plays on what Mark said. Tennessee, with their switching defense, they screwed up a lot, in particular the end of the half, and Rick Barnes was concerned about that. He's also concerned that 2 of your seniors fouled 3-point shooters, which led to 4-point plays. Tennessee's bench didn't really come through. They got 29 points against Georgia. They had 8 against Vanderbilt. Or maybe it was 4 against Vanderbilt, sorry. And then as far as points in the paint, Tennessee was outscored there. They were outscored on second chance points.
Yeah, 18-9 on the second chance points because Vandy just got the offensive boards all day.
Yeah, and what's kind of hard to figure, to Mark's point as well, about not defending that well inside. So Akpora has 4 blocks. Yeah. That looks good, right? However, they gave up a lot of inside points, either second chance points or feeding it to the guy that came off the bench that got like 14 points and 10 rebounds.
I think Tennessee's guards are doing way too much. Last night, Tennessee's guards 12 of 34 from the floor. Your bigs were 12 of 15. Zakai Ziegler, unbelievable player, fantastic generational talent in Tennessee. Zakai Ziegler has one of his last 9 games, he's shot better than 36%. What does that tell you? Stop shooting and distribute the basketball. figure out a way to make sure you get Milicic, maybe figure out a way to get Okpara, more shots down low. I also remember something Bobby Mays said to us years ago in the Pearl days was that to make sure my bigs are dialed in on the defensive end, I need to make sure I get them the ball early on the offensive end. Tennessee's not doing that. And we all knew what was coming last night. Lanier's going to drive in the lane. Zakai's going to drive in the lane. Is that a winning proposition for you? It has been most nights, but there are some nights it's not going to be, and I think they need to start getting their bigs involved a little bit more. Milicic also has to be more aggressive. He gets the ball and then
more certain.
and then dishes it to Lanier, dishes it to Zakai, and lets them take a shot. Once he got aggressive down the stretch, that looked pretty good. But if you're 12 of 34 from the floor, and this isn't a one-game thing, this is who you are the last 4 or 5 games, especially during SEC play. I think you have to find a way to get your bigs more shots.
The challenge with that is if you're watching us, the scouting report is continue. Meg Zakai beat you with his shot because they're going to come off that lob on his pick and roll action and his penetration less and less and make him finish. Even with Chaz getting to the rim, can he finish at the rim at a high level? I don't know. And so I think defensively they're going to continue to stay locked in on those rolls and then see if they even switch it. You know what Vandy did last night? We would switch things, and they would post up their big against our guard, and they would expose us. I think if teams start switching us, will we, to your point, will we throw the ball inside, even against a switch to an Akbar or to an Igor, to take advantage of that inside?
Well, I think you've got a fatal flaw in the way you play defense in the post. I don't think you can keep playing behind the post player and not change anything up. You give up way too many points. How many times did they just get an easy pass into the post? You're 4 feet away from the bucket already. You don't box out. How many times did you see Tennessee box out? You can't give up all those points in the zone. You can't be minus 10 on second chance points on the road. And kudos to Vanderbilt. The Memorial Gym was live again. I think a Nashville columnist said Vanderbilt's back.
Well, that's because I said last week that the Memorial Magic hasn't really bit you in recent years. if I had said, "Oh man, that place is a death trap, you're doomed," Tennessee would have won 88-7 yesterday. But I didn't, so there you go.
John, here's another thing too. So Zakai Ziegler goes out with 2 fouls with about 7:10 left in the half. Vanderbilt goes on an 11-0 run, a 14-2 run. Ryan Boswell, the backup point guard, plays 2 minutes and has a -8.
Yeah.
That just tells you how much they miss Ziegler on the court.
Yeah.
And I don't think necessarily Boswell's the answer. I'm not sure if Gainey's the answer, but that was really a concern to see how Tennessee became discombobulated without Ziegler.
And the Rick Barnes quote was, it was ridiculous to take that kind of risk with that foul.
Well,
Ziegler's,
but here's my question: is a lot of the analytics is now showing that coaches don't need to yank a guy. I mean, if you go back to the first with 2 fouls.
Yeah.
Do you need to yank him there? Because as Jimmy said, I had it down for it was a -9 during that stretch is what I saw, or what the numbers suggested, but 9, 8, whatever.
Right.
Once they took Ziegler out. So is that one, Mark? How would you have handled that? Would you believe in taking those guys out after 2, or do you trust a senior leader like Ziegler to play with it?
Well, the non-analytics part is how are the refs calling the game? Yeah. Who are you matched up against? You know, is their point guard really driving into the basket and getting fouls? So with me, in that case, I would go and trust the senior. I look at Zakai. You've been here for 4 or 5 years. You've not really gotten much foul trouble in your entire career. Vanderbilt's a guy getting the ball inside more than driving it down our throat. And so I would have gone the route. Maybe take him out, but if it's not going the right way and they're gaining momentum, then you put him back in. But the other side of that is if it gets too long and you go like 3 minutes left in the half, then he's like, all right, you've been sitting here for 10 minutes in real time.
Yeah.
You know, now are you out of the flow? And so there's a lot that goes into that.
Well, and I also want to, we also talk about the fact that Rick Barnes needs to give him more breaks because he's averaging 34 minutes. So I understand that I'm now turning around saying, should they have taken him out there? Well, you're going to have to take him out somewhere. You can't just let him play 40 minutes a night.
Didn't it feel like that was his 3rd foul to me? I mean, when I'm watching it and the way they kept him on the bench, and it was his 2nd foul, right?
Yeah.
If it's 3 fouls, you can maybe understand that, but with 2, you just can't afford to fall behind like that.
The other piece of when you got a Meshack, if they have a great guard, Meshack can go on the great guard and you put Zakai in the 2nd guard, right? To be able to offset some of that. But so I would have kept him in, but obviously Coach Barnes He knows what he's doing.
There you go. All right. When we come back, let's dive into the last 2 minutes of yesterday's game, and we'll talk about the press, Lanier's layup, the foul that gave UT a chance. Much more to come, plus a little message here as we go to break. Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by E.G. Hines Company. Masonry, roofing supplies, Nudura concrete forms, cultured stone, any kind of building material you need from hundreds of the top vendors in the United States. These guys do a tremendous job. Get down there this week, see Gordon, Jacob, Anna, and Alex. Tell them the Sports Source said hello, and trust me, if you got a do-it-yourself project or if you're starting a big project, this is the place to start it. A.G. Hines Company. All right, we got a poll question today. Oh, it's a fun one. There we go. When do you pull for Bruce Pearl? It's Bruce Pearl. Oh, we got a 0 in the middle. That's interesting because I've heard people on social media that have went straight to the middle. When do you pull for Bruce Pearl? Your options are every game but Tennessee, every game period. There's some of those out there. And then absolutely 100% never. So that's actually taking the lead here for people voting at the website, sportsource.tv. You can go and click polls.
Wow.
Or right there, just go ahead and use your smartphone. Click on that QR code right below the Hearthside Bank logo. And tell us what you think. When are you pulling for Bruce Pearl? Every game but Tennessee? Every game, period? Or 100% absolutely never? All right. Let's touch on a couple things from the last 2 minutes, and I'll start with Mark, then everybody else can jump in here on some of these. Vandy started milking the clock. Rick Barnes started to press them, speed them up a little bit. It worked. UT scored the last 9 points in regulation. Could they have started pressing a little sooner? You can always make that kind of question second guess, but I'll ask you, would you? I mean, it certainly worked when you went to it.
Well, it did. We started playing with more aggression. They were back on their heels, almost playing to not lose the basketball game. I just look at, and Will mentioned guys like Igor, other guys playing with more assertiveness and getting to the rim, not settling for jump shots. So I think the press helps with that, where you're not playing back on your heels. And I don't know if you do it earlier, it kind of worked out. But again, I look more at how we handle that interior paint overall. And Vanderbilt, I give Vanderbilt credit. They played well.
Anyone want to chime in on that? Press, you cool with when he did it?
No, I was fine with it. I don't think that's who they are. I do think I like that it keeps you on the, as the Brits say in soccer, the front foot, right, when you press. But I think Tennessee usually can do that even when they're just running their normal defense.
Yeah, I give him credit. It worked.
Yeah.
I mean, he went to it and it worked.
And there were missed free throw from getting into overtime. So.
Yeah. And the next one, there were some people that were upset about they get the ball 15 seconds. They're down 2. They get it to Ziegler. Ziegler gets it Lanier. Lanier simply drives the lane or beside the lane, goes up. Kid from Vanderbilt makes a great play. I mean, to block it and not get a foul, that was a great play. Sometimes the other guy makes a play. Your thoughts on, would you have drawn up something different? Were you good with the shot they got, with the shot they took?
I was good with it. I didn't have any problem with that. And Lanier was going, look, I didn't know that guy was that good defensively that could block a shot like that.
Ivy Leaguer.
From Cornell. But
Look,
that was a hell of a play.
Yeah.
If you're an NBA draft pick, you get to the rim like that, you're going up against a non-NBA draft pick, you finish that basketball. You got to be able to elevate high enough, use your body or something to get to the rim. I think it was a great play call to not settle for a jump shot when guards are shooting the way that they're shooting, the way Chaz has shot the last few games. I loved it.
It looked like Lanier got up a little too early. It looked like he took off a little too late, and that was one of the reasons they were able to block it. I mean, who am I to question the way he goes up? But it just seemed like he was already on his way back down by the time he had to lift it up. I just thought it looked like he left it open a little bit. He should be able to out-jump that guy to where he can't block it.
Yes.
So I thought he took off maybe a little early, which allowed that guy to get in there.
But from what we heard coming in, guys, we heard that he was one of the leaders in the country, Lanier, in dunks and three-pointers, just like Dalton Connect was last year. He hasn't really been able to finish at the rim. I can think of several times that come to mind. Either he got stopped. I mean, I love the play call, but it didn't work.
Am I wrong to say that Lanier seems to be shooting off balance, falling away, not putting his body into someone as he drives, when he gets into the lane as of late, especially during SEC play the last few weeks? Like, is it a matter of just the physicality right now is a lot for him and he's having to adjust to that? Because that's one thing I thought that he could have done differently. I love the play call, but could he have thrown his shoulder into the guy and put a body into the guy to try to create space?
Perhaps, and Barnes consistently talks about he's having to learn a new level of
Right.
football, so that would fit with that. Mark, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think he didn't get his body into him, and he didn't fish. I mean, these guys practice against tall, athletic. I mean, look, you're going against Cade and Akbar, typically protecting the rim in practice every day. You would think that would be there. Sometimes you think you're so open and you kind of slow down a little bit, but I just thought it was a lack of the use of his body.
Yeah. Finally, Vanderbilt missed a free throw. Tennessee got the rebound. They got bailed out a little bit because Lanier would have just had to take a three-quarter or a half-court shot at best there. Instead, you get the foul call on Vanderbilt, which we usually don't talk about refs here, but I'm bringing it up only because you usually don't get that call on the road in basketball. Right. That was a questionable call.
That was a Christmas present right
there.
there.
I thought so too.
I'll take that one.
Even Dane on the broadcast was having to say, I guess he got him with his hip.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you can't count on that on the road.
No.
And if you make that free throw, you got to figure we're going to go win this game in overtime if you would have made that free throw. But yeah, I was surprised we got that call.
Let's talk about the missed free throw. Look, it happens. He hit the first one, missed the second one. You hate it for a guy who had just kind of gotten himself back out of a slump. He'd been slumping in terms of scoring. He gets back on the board, gets a little bit more of a rhythm yesterday. And then it's almost like you don't get the layup at the end, and we're sitting here talking about you. You missed the free throw at the end. We're still sitting here talking about you. That's got to feel rough for a guy who, again, Barnes is saying, having to get used to another level. Not the way he'd want to finish, obviously, with the block and then missing the free throw. I kind of feel bad that Lanier is the one that had that happen to him because he's struggling so much right now.
And he's typically a good free throw shooter.
Yeah, 77%, I think.
Yes, in that range. So I don't know if the moment got him. Actually, it kind of went in and out. It wasn't a bad shot.
Right.
It wasn't like an air ball.
But
it
one
was a
quick question. Same play with Gainey had been a better option to finish at the rim, considering he's won a game dribbling the length of the court.
No.
No.
I mean,
I'm
going Chaz all day.
But then who else are you going to run that for? You're pretty much going to run it for Chaz Lanier, right?
Yeah.
If you run that play. So, I mean, that's why I think you go back to saying it was a good play.
Yeah.
Back to the free throw, I think it's one of those things. I do think that he's struggling. He's struggling from the floor. He had a bad night, and you learn from it, you grow, and that's what you hope that a young person can do.
he didn't have a bad night against Vanderbilt.
He did not. He did not.
I feel bad when the field goal mixed the game-winning field goal.
Yep.
More so in high school and somewhat college these days. But let's be honest, these days it's becoming paid for play. And the pay for play, we'll get to that. But the other side of it is, there's a cost for leadership. Like there's a cost for being the best player on the team. If you want to be the best player on the team, if you want to be drafted in the NBA, you got to make game-winning plays. Like that's your role on the team, to be put in those high-pressure moments. And the good players, the great players, the teams that succeed, they make those plays. And then the other side of it is, look, call it what it is these days. You're getting paid, like Barnes said, to make shots.
Yeah.
And so we can't feel bad. I mean, we can feel bad as a humanistic side of it, but in part of it, there's still a business level to it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And feel bad he missed it, but at the end of the day, that's what the expectation is of great players.
Yeah, that's legit. If you guys want money, you're going to take the money, deal with the heat. So, but I'm a bleeding heart. I feel sorry for him. All right. Tell you somebody that's not getting people feeling sorry for him. Bruce Pearl. Every game period is now up to 6%. So you got some people out there who are saying, I pull for him even against Tennessee. But what's taking off and winning is the people saying, absolutely 100%, never do I pull for Bruce Pearl. Play along. Tell us what you think. Are you part of the I'm always for him, I'm never for him? I'm for him when he's not playing UT. Let us know. When we come back, the Vols will host Mississippi State, and then they'll go travel to see Bruce Pearl, and that 6% will be pulling for Auburn to beat Tennessee. Maybe that's Auburn fans watching our show. Let's discuss those two games next. Come on back. Welcome back into the Sports Source. There is no more beautiful place in this world than the Smoky Mountains in winter. And you can see it all and stay near all the popular attractions when you book a prime RV hookup at Uncle Jim's River Cove Campground. Visit them online this week and you'll see all the amenities. And man, I could go for the rest of this segment and listing amenities for you. Great place to camp, great place to take your RV for an excursion. rivercovecampground.com to learn more. Okay, Mark Pankratz, what do fans need to know about a home date against Mississippi State coming up Tuesday, and then a road trip to Auburn on Saturday? It looks like Janai Broome hasn't played the last couple of games, a significant sprained ankle. I would think he probably won't be back. It looked bad enough, but we'll see. You never know. Thoughts on these two games?
Well, for one, you just got to go roll the tape of how we performed against Mississippi State last year if you need any sort of motivation, because we got exposed and whipped in the SEC tournament, just out-toughed, out-manned. And really, that's what Mississippi State does now. I mean, they can shoot it better this year. They've got some better guards, but they played Ole Miss last night and ended up winning that game in overtime. Really tough ball club. That's going to be a tough one, even at home. But you go to Auburn, I mean, you talk about our depth, right? I mean, Auburn's got 6 guys. With Broome being out, it's down to 5, but they got 6 guys on their roster averaging double digits. And it's almost, Pearl, he may be one that leaves Broome out, even if he can come back a little bit, because track record is he's a really good motivator when he gets guys that are playing kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit. The way that they attack, I mean, it's a Bruce Pearl team, right? The culture is the culture. They're going to attack you downhill. They're going to mix it up with you. They're going to press. They're going to cause problems in their side OBs and under out of bounds plays to generate turnovers. They're going to take bad shots. Our guards are going to have to rebound because they do take a lot of perimeter shots, especially with Broome out. And if we're not rebounded down, those long rebounds will end up in their hands of the guards. And when they get offensive rebounds, Bruce Pearl's teams have always been high-level scorers after offensive rebounds and turnovers.
Chuck, you hoping for a split this week if you're a UT fan?
Yeah.
Is that best case scenario, you think?
Yes. I mean, it's going to be very tough to go to Auburn and beat Auburn. Mississippi State, Josh Hubbard, it's going to be a great matchup between him and Chaz Lanier. I mean, those are 2 of the best 3-point shooters in the conference, right? But they attack the glass. Tennessee has got to do a better job rebounding if they want to turn it around and stay above 500. SEC.
I'm thinking the best you're going to do this week is a split. I may be underselling them. What do you think?
I agree. I think that I am concerned about that Mississippi State game because of what we saw in the tournament, because of what Chris Jans does. I do think also maybe does it kind of coax Barnes into old bad habits of let's try to win this game 62-58, and I don't know that Tennessee's built for that right now, and that team is built for that. So I get concerned with that, and I think it's going to be very tough. You're going to have a great shooting night to go to Auburn and be able to knock them off.
And Mississippi State's pretty good. I watched the end of their game against Ole Miss, and they won in overtime. It was like they had the game won, then it didn't, and they did, and they didn't, but they found enough ways to figure out how to win it. They've got a lot of nice basketball players. Hubbard may be their best. I guess that's arguable. But they've got a lot of pretty good pieces to that team.
My prediction is going to be the same the rest of the way. Are they at home? They'll win. Are they on the road? They'll lose. That's college basketball. Mark, did you have one more thing you were going to say?
Very good.
You sure?
Yep.
All right, buddy. Thank you very much for coming in. Always appreciate it. When we come back, Jermod McCoy suddenly a question mark for 2025 with an ACL tear. We'll talk about that. Tim Banks finalizing a deal to stay around as defensive coordinator. We'll talk about that. We shift gears to Tennessee football. Come on back on the Sports Source. Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Southeast Termite and Pest Control. This is my group. I use it. Well, not that I own them. This is a group I use. Southeast Termite and Pest Control. They take care, spring's around the corner. That's going to be carpenter bees, termites, and bed bugs coming around. Mosquitoes, stink bugs, all those things are going to be coming back spring, summer, fall. Protect your home, protect your business, your office by calling Southeast Termite and Pest Control. They are the largest locally owned pest control company in all of East Tennessee. So it's good to support the local businesses here in the community. Keep that money right here in Knoxville. SoutheastTermite.com. All right, let's welcome in the next member of our panel right here, Bob Hodge. I'm used to you being on the left of me over here. It's weird to see you here on the right of me.
I hope I don't fall over.
Yeah, there we go. Some news from the Hill this week. First of all, no surprise, James Pierce declares for the NFL draft. We all knew that one. I don't think there's any need to discuss. So let's use this instead. ESPN's Chris Lowe reported this week that Tennessee and defensive coordinator Tim Banks were finalizing an extension. That was about 3 or 4 days ago. I've not seen a press release from UT yet, but Chris Lowe has great sources, especially with the agents in the world, so I would guess that is close to being finalized if it hasn't been already. Bob, the importance of keeping Tim Banks at Tennessee.
I think a lot of the fans would say that, okay, great, we kept him. I'm going to say I think it's very important that they kept him because if you look in 22, it was all about the offense. Tennessee's offense, Heupel, everything's great. I think 23 and 24 have been just about as much about the defense. And the defense, I think, in 23 was underrated.
Yes.
You know, when you go back and you look at an SEC play, the points they allowed, this, that, and the other.
Top 4 in just about every main category.
And so it was underrated. This year, the defense was literally the strength of your team for most of the season. So I think keeping Banks was very important from my eyes. I actually thought that somebody would snap him up as a head coach.
Yeah, it's interesting. He
Kind
didn't
of
get much
surprised
play
that
there.
didn't happen.
Yeah.
So I think very important.
I do too, and I do agree with the defensive numbers you talked about. 2023, they were really good. They got even better in 2024. He had 2 bad games last year, okay?
Yeah.
2. Well, Chip Kelly had a bad game as Ohio State's offense coordinator against Michigan. Yeah. You're not going to be perfect as a coordinator. And I think what he brought to the table, they don't win 10 games if their defense wasn't as good as it was, because their offense in SEC games sputtered a little bit.
It's average.
But here's the other thing, too. 3 or 4 days ago, it's reported that they're working on a deal. Was it 3 or 4 days ago that Penn State lost its defensive coordinator to Clemson? I wonder if that's changed the dynamics.
And
Maybe
of course,
it
that's
hasn't.
where Banks was from.
Right.
Yep.
So has it changed the dynamics at all? I don't know. But I do think it's very important for Tennessee to keep Banks.
Now, Willie Martinez out of contract. Mike Eckler out of contract. No smoke, no buzz, no nothing. I would think if Tennessee was moving on, you would have heard murmurs about them looking at other people, talking to other people. Those things would have started. The fact that I haven't heard anything makes me think that they're just hammering out details and those guys are still going to be back. And so far under Heupel, that's pretty much been, he maintains the status quo for the most part. If somebody leaves, they leave and he replaces them, but we haven't seen him go dropping guillotines across the landscape so far. So, thoughts on Martinez and Eckler? Are we assuming they're back next year at this point, or is it still too early to assume?
I'm going to go ahead and assume because
You know what that does, though.
I know what it does. And you want me to say it?
No.
I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and assume because I think the hiring season's almost over. I mean, it never really ends, I know, and you can hire coaches and change coaches in February. But it seems like those two guys, excuse me, if they were leaving, they would have already left. That's my opinion.
I'm not going to use the word assume. I'm going to say I think that they will. Yeah, how about that? Don't get as much trouble with that one. Martinez, the secondary had its best year under him this past year. And they did it with a whole bunch of new faces, right? Because there were a ton of defensive backs that left. Some were probably encouraged to leave. Many said, they're not going to miss that guy. They're not going to miss that guy. And so they brought in some players that were a little bit unknown, but I thought the secondary had its best year under him. I think Eckler is solid. I don't think there's any reason to make a change there. So I think both will be back.
The secondary was made a lot better by Jermod McCoy last year. ESPN put out their All-American team. He was second team All-American according to ESPN. He tears his ACL while training back in Texas. Timeline-wise, that is not good. Here's my concern. One, it's going to be a race to get him back for the start of the season.
Right.
And that probably means you're not going to have him for fall camp. You're just going to be throwing him out there. Okay, so then you got to question, is he 100%? And the other thing I hate about the ACL tears, and you see it with receivers a lot, it takes 2 years for them to feel comfortable about that. And receivers will drop passes. They don't trust it. So it usually takes that second year. Will that be true of a defensive back as well, of a corner? Because it's so similar. You're playing a receiver. Are you going to trust that knee and feel good to be 100% yourself, or are you always just in the back of your mind going to be holding back a little bit? Because, again, you see that a lot with receivers. Would you see it in the cornerback? So I think this is a huge, huge offseason story for Tennessee.
I do too. And McCoy had an excellent year. And look what he did against Ryan Williams at Alabama. He shut him down. They had 18 targets, and I think he caught 4 passes.
Had a bad day against Ohio State, but so has everybody else except Michigan this year.
Right, and they got schemed on that one a lot.
Yeah.
With McCoy, though, it's interesting. Syracuse is your first opponent, right? Well, if they had Kyle McCord back, that would really be a concern because he led the nation in passing yards. I don't know who Syracuse's quarterback is going to be. But with McCoy, the movements of a receiver and the movements of a cornerback, as you alluded to, are similar. Now, how mentally tough is he with that? He may be okay. It may not take him another year to adjust. So we'll see. But I think he is the best defensive back they got. He's an integral part of that defense. He allows you to call defensive signals that because you can trust him with his man coverage. So they need him back, but they don't need to rush him too soon to create another injury.
And that's, I think, what the important thing is. If he's back, they need to make sure he is back. And you're going to want him back for Syracuse regardless of the quarterback because doesn't matter who it's going to be, they're going to throw it all over the place. Yes. So, but I would be much in favor of let's have him totally healthy for 9 games if you can get him there and not worry about the first start of the season.
Just get him ready for SEC play.
Exactly.
Yeah, that to me is that skyrocketed to your number one thing to watch this offseason. I mean, that is to a key player to have the ACL tear after the season. That's just rough timing. All right, when we come back, Vols are making huge money, and they're spending a ton on recruiting. Inside the University of Tennessee Athletic Department's finances, are fans happy about what they're getting for all that money? Come on back. Welcome back. This segment of the Sports Source is brought to you by Madisonville Marine. Boy, they got a giant selection of new and pre-owned boats. Bob, you got a boat down there years ago. You still love the thing.
I still love the boat, and we'll probably be freezing in that boat here in just the next couple of weeks.
There you go. Get down to Highway 411 North in Madisonville. Get your pick from the widest selection of boats anywhere from Georgia to North Carolina to Arkansas. Anywhere in this state, nobody's going to beat them in terms of the different types of makes and models. I mean, if you're thinking, well, I don't know if I want a boat for my family to ski with or if I want a fishing boat for me or we want a pontoon boat to entertain, get down there. They got them all in one lot, and they can help you pick the right boat for you. madmarine.com. All right, let's remind folks of the poll, see where we stand on this thing. Absolutely 100% never still in the lead. Second is I pull for Bruce Pearl every game at Tennessee. And what is that, 7% now? Saying every game period they pull for him? My light's on the screen, so I can't tell. Nobody's saying anything, so I'll assume
it is 7%.
7%. Okay, there we go. So keep playing, keep telling us it's growing. The Bruce Pearl fans are coming out in droves now. They went from 6% to 7%. All right. For fiscal year 2023-2024, the UT Athletic Department, and kudos to the Sentinel, they always do the give us your records stuff, and they write it up. UTAD brought in a record $234 million. You're closing in on $250 million. That's $89 million more than UT brought in 2017. That's the kind of jump. And it has jumped every year under Danny White. He's been behind all of it. He told the Knoxville News-Sentinel, he's wanting more money. I think he slicked his hair back like Gordon Gekko. So let's go ahead and tell you what Danny White said here. Greed is good. We can become the highest revenue, highest budget in the country here at Tennessee. When you have a passionate, huge fan base, you can turn that into operational revenue. We've got some growth ahead of us, and I think we can get to the top. So Tennessee, the aim is to have the biggest budget in the United States of America. Now, you know how they cook the books, all these schools do it, it's amazing. They'll say, well, we brought in $188,231,006, and we spent the exact same amount. But Tennessee, they brought in $234, they claim they spent $231, so it was only a $3 million profit. I'm sure that's the case. At any rate, they just had a tremendous year on the field. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. You went to the playoff in football. You went to the Elite Eight in men's basketball. You won a national championship in baseball. Every one of your teams, I believe, made the NCAA postseason. But you lost in the playoffs. You only flamed out in the Elite Eight. My question is, do fans look at that money and look at the success across the board and say, yeah, we're making the money and they're spending it wisely? Or are most fans saying, not good enough. If we're making that kind of money, I want a national championship in football and basketball. Where are we?
Right now, it's good enough. 5 years from now, as ticket prices, where does that operational revenue supposed to come from? Fans. That's where the operational revenue is going to come from until you build other things around Neyland Stadium that you could monetize there. But so there are a lot of people who took a 20 to 50% pay cut or pay increase in their ticket packages this year for football. That's going to change things, especially if it continues to go up. So I think right now, this is good enough. At some point in time, if you're paying that much money through the nose for your tickets, you're going to expect championships.
Some point in time gets here quicker than I think people think it will get here. And I think if you're a football team, this year, I think everybody, happy you made the playoffs. Okay, what if you're still losing in the first, you're making the playoffs, but you're losing in the first round, say 4 years from now. Okay, that's not going to be good enough. You know it's not going to be good enough. How many basketball fans get upset that Rick Barnes never makes it beyond the Sweet 16 until last year made it to the Elite Eight? So, yeah, I think I agree with Will 100%. It's good enough today, but this same kind of success, and I don't think you can expect baseball championships every year, softball, but you've got the Lady Vols ticking up.
Yeah.
You got basketball, all these things. Yes, it's good enough right now. But as you pull more money from the fans, no, it won't be good enough. So if I was him, I wouldn't have even really talked about all that. I would have just, we're doing well. But, man, we're doing great. We're going to be the best. Well, you better be the best.
Well, and they're also, hey, we're doing this, and look, we need more operational revenue for the athletics department.
Yeah.
But also, you guys need to donate money to
us-
the ball club and
we're
do all
taking-
of the things for NIL.
And there's now a 10% talent fee on top of the tickets.
Absolutely.
I do think part of it is, and this is no knock on any of the other sports. You can be good in all the other sports, but I think at the University of Tennessee, it's you winning championships in football. And I think a men's basketball Final Four, because you've never had one.
Right.
I think that would appease people. This is no knock, but you won a national championship in baseball, which is fantastic, and the community got around it, and they're going to be around it again. And the stadium that they're enlarging is going to seat 7,000, 8,000. It's not the 100,000 seater. And I think that's always going to be the problem. You can be great across the board. And I think if you gave most fans the option, make all the other sports suck, but you win a national championship in football, I got bad news for all the other coaches because they're going to pick sucking everything but football.
It's awesome
coming.
being an everything school right now.
Yeah.
But 3 years, 5 years, whenever we get some type of revenue sharing, like, are you going to look at it and say, we're 9-3 in football, but we just went to the Final Four in golf again? Not a lot of people are going to care.
Right, and here's the thing: if you're Danny White, you're doing the right thing.
He is.
Yeah.
But that is just human nature.
Yes.
I think I don't know that that's right. You should be sitting there happy that your school is doing good in all these things.
Mm-hmm.
But I know fans, and it's okay.
Yeah, not only
what's
Danny,
the big one? Give me a title in
Not
football.
only doing the right thing, I think he could even flip those words around. He's doing just about everything right.
Yeah, he is.
He's doing it.
He
Absolutely
doesn't have
is.
missteps.
That's exactly right. All right. We are launching, let me go ahead and put up a quote. We are launching our new digital network. You saw an ad for it earlier. Next Monday, depending on the weather this week, hopefully we can tape some of our shows. But next Monday, the 27th, you can get to YouTube and already subscribe. But here's what I want you to do. The Sports Source Q&A show. Send your questions today. It's SSDN Questions. That's Sports Source Digital Network. So SSDNquestions@gmail.com. Include your first and last name, as well as your hometown. That way we can say, Joe Schmidlap from Hackensack wants to know, boom. Then visit the Sports Source Digital Network on YouTube on Monday the 27th. See if we answer your question. We'll try and get to as many as we can, but I'm going to leave that up there for one more second. Send your questions. You don't have to go to contact us on the sportsource.tv page. You can just go straight to Gmail, or just straight to your email account. Send us your questions to answer, ssdnquestions@gmail.com. If there's something we haven't covered on this show and you want it covered, send it to us. We'll cover it on the new YouTube channel.
I thought
All
the
right.
Schmidlaps lived in Gudger.
They've moved from Gudger to Hackensack.
Okay, there you go.
But they were originally Gudgerians. All right. When we come back, another week, another round of nightmares for the NCAA and college administrators. Find out how the Wild West gets wilder. Come on back. Welcome back. This segment of the Sports Source is brought to you by Rusty Wallace Kia. When winter weather hits, don't you want to be in a vehicle that can handle it? The Kia Telluride can handle it. I know, I've got a Kia Telluride. Mine gets around in snow with ease. Visit Jake Bull and his team at Rusty Wallace Kia on Callahan Drive this week. I have bought 5 straight vehicles from this place. And that predates, by 5, the years that they have been a sponsor on this show. So that is not, well, of course he goes down there, they're a sponsor. Nope, bought 5 vehicles down there, then they became a sponsor. Rusty Wallace Kia of Knoxville, I believe in them. Get down there and see them on Callahan Drive this week. All right, last week we listed a number of reasons why the proposed settlement that would help schools pay players probably won't hold up. You're just going to have lawsuits over here and lawsuits over here. You're going to say, well, it's $20 million is what they're aiming for. Well, that's a salary cap, and nobody collectively bargained for it. So all it's going to take is one kid and one lawyer to get in front of one judge who says, yeah, that's not legal. But anyway, the Department of Education weighed in this week, and they put out a memo that simply said, hey, if schools are planning to take NIL dollars that they raise from collectives and then pay players directly, which is part of the House settlement plan, well, you can't give more to football than you do other sports, which was the plan, the key part of that plan. That would be a Title IX violation. For those people who say, well, we don't like Title IX, Title IX is the law of the land. So you might not like a law, but it is a law. And their quote, the memo said, when a school provides athletic financial assistance in forms other than scholarships, including compensation using NIL, such assistance must be made proportionately available to male and female athletes. So you're continuing to go down this path toward the House settlement. You know somebody's going to challenge it in court on the salary cap side of it. Now you've already found this out, that if you go down this road, you're probably going to hit with the Title IX, which I think 99% of people already saw this coming. Reactions to this. Fans want this to get to an end. I want it to get to an end. There's no end in sight. There's no fix. People want a resolution to when's this NIL transfer portal madness going to stop. I don't see it. I don't see how they're going to get to one because everything they throw out has an issue. Gentlemen, any thoughts on the Title IX aspect of this?
You know, I think the Title IX aspect of this is what will end up causing the most litigation. I think a lot of these other things can get solved, but how do you solve the Title IX implications from this? I mean, do you got to start going through your athletic program and saying, sorry, golf, you're gone. Sorry, men's tennis, you're gone. You know, and when they talk about proportional, are they talking about you've got to pay equal numbers of players in your athletic department, male and female?
Equal amount of money to
or is
both
it equal
sides.
amount of money?
Yeah.
Well, I just don't see how that even begins to work.
Is this like
I don't either.
the start of the more towards the super conference in football, where football is its own separate thing, and you do the Title IX, and because those numbers, you got so many players on scholarship in football.
Yeah.
How is that going to equate to like 15 scholarships in women's basketball?
Well, that's the problem.
That's the thing.
That's the
That's
problem.
the
Is
thing.
football never should have been included in Title IX. I don't know how you don't include it, but you shouldn't have
Right.
because it's too many scholarships. And also, in this instance, it makes far more revenue than anything else. Add all the rest of them together, they don't make what football makes. So it doesn't need to be counted there. I think most people, most reasonable people, certainly people with daughters, would say, yeah, making it equal, that's fine. You have enough women's teams, same as men's teams. The problem is there's no women's team that has 85 scholarships. There's no women's team or other men's team that brings in the money. So it shouldn't count, but it does.
But it does.
I don't know how you not count it. I
There
mean,
are
you don't
only,
count
only
it.
two revenue-producing sports consistently in the NCAA. It's football and men's basketball. And as good as the Lady Vols were under Pat Summitt, they always lost money.
Yeah.
They never made any money. And there are a lot of men's sports and women's sports beyond men's basketball and football that they lose money. I don't know how you make this equal. I don't know what the formula is going to be. I don't think football should be included in that because it is the only one that makes revenue, and there's no equivalent sport for women to football in the 85 scholarships. So I don't know what the answer is going to be, but I'm sure they'll screw it up.
Now, the interesting thing here is the schools are thinking, okay, we'll bring in this money. They're still going to keep the collectives to go out and raise money. That's going to be one of their fundraising arms.
Right.
Now, give us the money and we'll pay it out. If it's the collectives doing the paying, you don't have to worry about Title IX.
That's a private entity.
Correct.
Right.
You don't have to worry about Title IX if you continue to do that, but they don't want to continue to do it. So it's like everything they want, there's an impediment. There's a wall between what they want and what they get. And the fix, it would seem, as we talked about last week, is give them contracts, make them employees. Well, that's what the schools don't want to do because then you're going to have to share some of that TV revenue.
The athletes I talk to don't want to be employees because they're going to get, if they become an employee, then they're going to get taxed on their scholarship money. So they don't want to be. I interviewed two of them. There was Jemima Ashak and Tamara Key with Tennessee and others at the SEC spring meetings. They didn't want to be employees because they want the non-taxable scholarship money that they get.
So the idea that you're sitting there at home saying, I'll just get to an answer.
No.
I'm saying the same thing. It's frustrating to me that it's a little more bizarre each week. And there's a new thing that's been thrown at it. I hinted at it last week. It's one of those things I thought, now watch, down the line, well, it took a week. The line was a very short line. We'll tell you about a case between a player leaving Wisconsin from Miami. get ready for eligibility rules to go away. Why, you could keep Peyton Manning here for 25 years, which I think Vol fans would have liked. Come on back. We'll discuss the next big issue with college sports that came up this week. That's next on the Sports Source. All right, welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Safety Systems, home automation, life safety systems, security systems. Check out safetysystems.com to learn more about what VFL JJ Surlis and his team can do for your business. If you run a business, let me tell you, these folks can help you run it more safely, more profitably. With the communications they can set up, the automation they can do in your business, they can really help you out. Safetysystems.com to learn more. Visit that website today. All right, let's take a look at the final results on our poll. The winner is absolutely 100% never. 60% of you say you don't pull for Bruce Pearl a lick. Then next to that is 34% say I pull for him every game but when he's playing the Vols. And then 6%, and it's changed a little, so it's down to 33 on that. 61% now say absolutely whenever. So congratulations to that guy or gal. Just click that. And then 6% of you say every game, period. So you'll be pulling for Auburn this week. Okay. Thanks for playing along. We appreciate it every week. I love having an idea of what the fans are thinking. Keep an eye on this story. Crazy. Wisconsin football player Xavier Lucas had entered into a monetary agreement with Wisconsin to stay and play ball there. But he changed his mind and asked to be put in the transfer portal. Wisconsin said, hey, man, we got a deal, and they didn't enter his name in the portal. He left anyway. His lawyer said, well, this was contingent on the House settlement. He hadn't been paid anything, so we gone. NCAA released a statement that shows just how powerless they are after all the lawsuits from Tennessee, Diego Pavia, everything else. Everyone celebrates those. But they all backfire.
Yeah.
And now when you're sitting here going, we need some rules. Oh, no. You sued them to get rid of all rules, so now it's just enjoy the madness. But here's what their statement was, and it is a doozy. NCAA rules do not prevent a student athlete from unenrolling from an institution, enrolling at a new institution, and competing immediately.
Wow.
So if you're sitting there going, we need the transfer portal to be shortened, what transfer portal? This kid just said, I don't need it. I'm going. And they're saying, we can't stop you. So the days, think back to the ages where, well, we've got to get a waiver for this kid. Oh, it's going to get, I hope his grades are up because it'll go through the NCAA clearinghouse. I repeat, from the NCAA, there's nothing to stop us, nothing to stop a student from unenrolling at one school, enrolling in another, and competing immediately. Last week, I joked on this show, look, where it's going is you're going to have a day where eligibility is gone. You look at the Diego Pavia thing, where he got an extra year for JUCO. Why is it going to stop there? It's going to be one guy who says, my kid isn't good, my client isn't good enough to play in the NFL, but he can continue to make $300,000 a year playing in college. Who are you to stand in between him and his livelihood? Right. And all it takes is one judge to go, bingo. Well, this is what I read in a Yahoo story just yesterday. I found this interesting. Take a look at this from Yahoo, if we've got the quote here. Rule number 1, there are no rules. The story, the NCAA is fighting at least 2 cases over eligibility rules, the Pavia case and one in Mississippi where a Southern Miss basketball player is suing the association seeking an extra year of eligibility. Both cases could result in the dismantling of NCAA eligibility rules in a similar way that the courts struck down the association's prohibition on athletic compensation and its restrictive transfer policies. That took, what, 6 days from last Sunday to Saturday to go from John's crazy theory to, oh, no, here it comes. Will, thoughts on the fact that they're saying this is going to be a test case for NIL, how binding those contracts are. I'm not worried about that. You read that comment, I think it just shows you're not going to have eligibility issue anymore, that you can, those rules you can get around them. And also, if you think you're going to hold somebody to a transfer portal window, forget it. They'll go anytime they want.
Well, my kid can transfer right now. She's at ETSU. She can decide with going back to school on Monday, she can decide, no, I want to go to Tennessee, enroll at Tennessee, and then go there, and they will cash that check as quickly as ETSU will. So if she was a student athlete, a women's basketball player, Tennessee wanted her, why couldn't if she's a normal student, she would be able to play immediately. The NCAA can't do anything here. One, they'll get sued. Literally every time they get sued, they lose.
Yes.
So we're at a point right now where they're just handing anyone anything that threatens to sue. So did the Diego Pavia case. That was to me when I said, oh, here we go. Because at some point in time, we will very, very soon, I think before maybe August, have no more eligibility. Where as long as you're a student at the university, then you can still play football as long as you want to, no eligibility requirements with that. And then someone's going to sue and say, wait a minute, why can't I be a contract labor employee at the university? Why do I have to be a student as well? You're stopping me from being able to make money. If someone wants to pay me to play college football, that's also coming down the line probably the next couple of years.
I would give the example of Casey Clausen. You got to go back a while for this, but this is a guy who was a great college quarterback. He was a really good college quarterback. Didn't make it in the NFL. Didn't even get a cup of coffee in the NFL. If Philip Fulmer had been able to say, Casey Clausen can come back here and play for $300,000 this year in 2004, or he would have said, well, we're going with the true freshmen, Brent Schaefer and Eric Ainge, and we'll see how that. He would have taken Casey Clausen. Any coach in the country would have kept Casey Clausen. Sure. So what's to say now? Peyton Manning, he can go make his money in the NFL, but these guys who can't do it, I think they're going to stick around. If this comes to pass, and I don't see any reason it won't, I could see guys saying, I'll stay at the University of Tennessee for another year and make another $200,000.
Well, let me ask you a silly question. Can you unenroll in mid-year and then go play for some other team in mid-season?
It says immediately.
Game to game.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, the joke that me and you have made is when do we see a guy at halftime leave Tennessee, walk across the field of Florida, and put on their jersey and start playing for them, I mean, which is outlandish. But this other thing, if you're going to have this extended eligibility, then you're gonna have to be in school, I'm assuming, for if you wanted to play 8 years.
How long that's going to come? How long is that going to be?
Well, I mean, here's the thing: you work on your bachelor's, then you get your master's, then you work on your doctorate.
Another master's.
Yeah. I mean, think about it, Dr. Sterling Hinton. Does it seem all that outlandish?
Well, here's the thing. I just wonder, he'd be a dentist. At what point, though, does somebody say, Your Honor, my client was illiterate when he arrived on campus. They knew this. Why are you making him go to class? You're getting in the way of his ability to make money. Yeah. And they'll win because all you got to do is get one judge, and the NCAA loses every case. I don't think you're going to have – I think you're just heading toward a minor league sport without it actually being minor leagues. Well, that's what, and I don't think the schools want to pay them as contract laborers, and you're saying the players don't want to be paid that way either. No. So the idea is, well, we'll just make them semi-pro. That's why I say no. No, but it's not.
Well, that's where it's headed.
No, it's not. That's what I'm saying. We call it that, but it's not. It's not even as you're not bound by anything. No. Even the Knoxville Smokies, the Knoxville Ice Bears, there are rules in those leagues. This is just complete lawlessness.
Well, I remember 2 years ago we sat here and said this was going to be the Wild Wild West, and boy, were we ever wrong. It's way, way, way worse.
Well, I mean, here's the thing.
Seriously.
You can't leave the Knoxville Ice Bears and say, I'd rather go play for the Savannah whatevers.
But they've collectively bargained, and they are employees, right? So until you make them employees, it's going to be just unregulated capitalism where anyone can do anything they want to at any time that they want to. Think about this scenario. Jalen Milroe, he entered the draft. He doesn't make it, or doesn't like where he's drafted. He's drafted third day.
Can he come
Notre
back?
Dame just offered Quinn Ewers how much money? $6 million a year to go there, $8 million a year to go there and play, and so he doesn't like where he's drafted, so he comes right back to Notre Dame, works on his master's degree, and he's Notre Dame's quarterback.
I keep going back to the kid from Tulane who's getting $4 million a year to go to Duke. So it's not you don't even have to go to Alabama and Texas and Notre Dame. So yes, you're right. I mean, if you don't like it, you've now got a way to bargain against your pro team. I'll go back and make my money.
Yes.
In college.
And now forever gone is the kid that stuck it out, waited his turn, paid his dues.
That's gone.
And it was a success.
Another interesting note, I'll throw this out there very quickly. I thought it was fascinating. Mike Vrabel this week was named Patriots head coach, and he was talking about one thing you're now having to think about in the draft. It's tougher to draft kids out of college more than ever because in the past, you get a kid from Alabama, you know what kind of kid you're getting. You get a kid from Ohio State, you know what kind of kid you're getting because they've been in this program. Here's what they've been taught. He said, now we have no idea because this kid played at 5 different places.
Yep.
That's an interesting offshoot of all this. So I know somebody's going to email me, I'm tired of talking about it. Well, it's coming, and it's going to change the way the way you watch sports. So we're going to talk about it now rather than, why didn't you tell us this was coming? Okay, we are telling you it's coming. When we come back, the SEC wanted playoff cash. But did the new cash cost them their dominance? That's next. Come on back. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Games and Things. Get your family back around the table, folks. Any table. Pool table, ping pong table, shuffleboard table, foosball table, air hockey table, pub table. You could say all kinds of tables. Yeah. Games and Things that's your table place, man. Games and Things is where you can get down and see their showroom for yourself. Look, you can visit ourgameroom.com, and that's fine. But walk into that showroom, and you are going to be impressed. This is a fun place to hang out. So visit them there and check out all the different tables that they offer. Games and Things, because life should be fun. All right, Ohio State will face Notre Dame tomorrow night for the national championship. Not that I'm pulling for Notre Dame or anything, with blue, gold, and green. But anyway, they're doomed. It's the second year in a row that an SEC team will not play in the title game. The SEC used to be a lock to get a team into the old BCS system. They had that reputation. So when in doubt, the SEC got a team in, and one year they got two teams in. When Alabama and LSU got the rematch. Now they chase the playoff dollars. Sankey was big on this. Let's do it. Now you're not as dominant as you were. Did the playoff cash cost them dominance?
Interesting.
I don't think so. I think it's NIL dollars, just larger donor bases in the Big Ten schools. They're spending more money on NIL. They also don't care if baseball and softball and women's basketball and those sports are good. And you know what I mean? They don't care. Football, maybe basketball, maybe. And I think that's where they're allocating their money, is they're putting so much more money into NIL for football that it's just kind of leveled the playing field, where in the SEC, we're better at the bagman life. They're better at the what they call it, clean money, where you have big time boosters who would never give you bagman money in the Big Ten, who will now give money to the NIL collective.
But the bagman money, you were talking at Tennessee, $60,000. We're so off the charts with that. And I'm tired of. I've heard Ohio State fans all week talk about, you can't pay anymore. And I'm like, really? Ohio State going to lecture people on cheating? Sign me up for a course in Tattoo-Gate. Bring in Tressel and Maurice Claret to tell us all how to cheat. Plenty of people cheated. I just think it's a different. To me, it's a simple question. Yes, I think you have lost your dominance because of the playoff, because you went from being one team in a two-team playoff in the BCS to 1 out of 12 or 3 out of 12. It's harder to win the thing now.
And neither one of these two teams would have been in with the old BCS
system.
Yeah, they would not have.
Yes, so that's what but is Ohio State going to spend this $20 million every year? And with this money coming in, I think you had the top part of the SEC this year just happened to be down. The top part of the Big Ten just happened to be up. This was their year to me.
Okay, I'm not saying they'll never win again.
Right.
I'm saying the day of
right
the
now.
SEC always being at the top, I don't see that coming. You may.
I think it's NIL and transfer portal. I think the NIL robbed Georgia of depth because they lost a lot of players. The coaching change at Alabama robbed them of depth, leading to the transfer portal. I think that was a bigger factor, those two.
I'm going to agree with a little bit of all of it, but in the end, I think Chuck made the best point.
Thank you.
In the old days, these two teams playing for the national championship wouldn't be there.
You'd have an SEC team already
Exactly.
against
You'd
the
have
Big
an
Ten
SEC
team.
team already in. So,
Georgia will not
that's
play.
right.
Yeah. So I think the going to the playoffs probably did hurt you, but I also think NIL, all of this
They all
stuff is
play
playing a
wrong.
role.
Right.
Yeah, but I don't think there's any way around that. You went from having an automatic bid into a two-team race every year into now you're having to fight through a 12-team
this year
playoff.
it would have been Georgia,
Oregon.
Oregon.
Yeah. Who's
That-
who it would have
there
been.
you go. Maybe
Yeah.
you don't win, but that's who you're going to have.
And even if you'd had a 4-team playoff, it would have been Georgia, Texas, Oregon, Penn State. You'd had two of the four.
Right. And one last thing, with Notre Dame, well, you look at a game story when they win a playoff game, every guy's a transfer. Every guy that contributed to that victory is a transfer they picked up in the portal.
Who are we talking about?
Notre Dame.
Oh, okay.
And that
Yeah.
put them over the edge, too. Instead of losing a lot of these close games, they're now winning.
They did a great job in the portal, there's no question. But you look at they averaged a top 10 class over the last 5 years, I think. It's better than what we showed it on the show
Right.
a few weeks ago. You've still got to recruit, but they did a great job in picking those
guys.
5 or 6 that will
Exactly.
keep
There you go.
contributors. Yep. All right, when we come back, I don't know if you watched that Lions game last night, but when Jared Goff had to leave the game, they went to their backup quarterback, the guy they signed who was coaching high school football a couple weeks ago. Where was Hendon Hooker? What does that mean for Tennessee? Come on back. Welcome back to the Sports Source, the segment brought to you by Hearthside Bank. I was talking to someone this week, and I heard about something I'd never encountered, a local banking institution that has replaced its tellers with banks of monitors, and the tellers are in some other place. Now, I don't know about you, but if you like to have a personal touch when you're banking, talking to Max Headroom on a screen does not do it for me. And people out there right now are going, who's Max Headroom? Yeah. Hearthside Bank, folks, they got the personal touch. If you're looking for personal banking, just go to any of their branches throughout southeast Kentucky and eastern Tennessee, right into the branch in Farragut, as a matter of fact. Hearthsidebank.com to learn where all those branches are. They've been around for many, 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 many years. I'm a big believer in them. Hearthsidebank.com to learn more. All right. So Jared Goff had to leave the Lions' loss to the Commanders last night, and in comes the backup quarterback, and it's the veteran Teddy Bridgewater. Now, Teddy Bridgewater was coaching his team to a state championship in Florida, a high school team, just a few weeks ago. They signed him, and I'm wondering, well, is Hooker injured? And I didn't know about it. What's the deal here? And I go and I look, and I find a Lions website, Lions fan site, and I'm like, well, the switch at quarterback finally that we knew was coming is finally here, which tells me that late in the season they said we need somebody to be the real backup. And last night, Hendon Hooker was not the backup. He was the emergency inactive number 3. And Teddy Bridgewater, who hasn't played in X amount of years, was your backup who came in. I don't think that's a great sign for Hendon Hooker. But the bigger issue here is the knock on this system from Josh Heupel. And it was the knock on Art Briles when he was at Baylor. These quarterbacks don't have the same reads that most systems have. Can you teach them in the NFL? These receivers don't run a full route tree.
Yeah.
You look at the stars of the 2022 team, and so far, it hasn't looked great. Hooker, Hyatt, Tillman, none have really taken off in the pros yet, and the Hooker thing is big. Is this a concern to you on the Heupel front? Because eventually, if you're not prepping guys for the pros, somebody's going to use it to recruit against you. Is that a concern or no?
I think it's
too early to tell.
It's a concern. It's not the level of concern it used to be, because at this point, it's just who pays the most money. That's where a lot of guys are going to go. But it is still a concern, I think. Like Hendon Hooker, in the preseason, Dan Campbell was saying, we love Hendon. He has to learn how to run the offense. You don't want to hear that, right?
Now you're at the end of year 2.
And they said, Dan, thanks, no thanks. Look, I am a Giants fan, unfortunately. Jalen Hyatt cannot play. He can't. He is not good enough to play as a receiver in the National Football League. He can't get on the field on a terrible football team. So I do think it is a concern, though not as big of a concern as it used to be.
But I think it could be a concern if 2 teams are offering the same amount.
Exactly.
Could be.
That's where I was
And you
going.
say, hey, wait a minute, this system doesn't produce NFL players, this one does.
Yeah.
So that could be a deal breaker.
So Tennessee has to also pay more. Does that cut in to what you can do all over your team because you're having to pay the quarterback more because he's saying, well, I may not make the NFL, so give me another $250,000.
Well, and that's something I've talked to Ryan Callahan on our show. We've talked to him about it from Go Vols 24/7, and he always makes the point that schools that churn out kids to the pros, they get a discount. Somebody may take less to go to Alabama when Saban was there. Somebody may take less to go to Ohio State or Georgia because they always lead the nation in draft picks.
Or North Carolina now, maybe?
We'll see. We'll see.
It has to be a concern, doesn't it? If you're talking about has to learn how to run the offense year 2, and you look at the history there, it has to be. To what degree, I'm not sure, but it has to be a concern.
And I always thought if you're a Tennessee fan, well, you care if they don't make it in the pros. But I guess, again, if you've got NIL and you're winning in the college rank, I think you'll be fine. But it may hurt with 1 or 2 players. You may wind up, no, I want to go somewhere where it's going to be better prepared for the pros.
So far, has Tennessee, over the past couple of years, looked like you brought in the best wide receivers that are available out there to other schools? It doesn't look like you have. Now, maybe totally unrelated, but you haven't brought those guys in.
All right, agreed. All right. Email us questions. Don't forget, email us questions at ssdnquestions@gmail.com. We'll answer them starting next Monday on our new YouTube channel, Sports Source Digital Network. Thanks for watching. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Thanks for making this show possible. Be safe out there in the bad weather. We'll see you next Sunday right back here.